Most of us play video games on a daily basis. One video game you might play is Madden. Madden is a NFL game where you get to play with your favorite NFL players. One thing that changes every year about the game is the cover. The cover features an athlete, and what some people may or may not know is that sometimes players don't have the best seasons after getting on the cover. This is what some people call the Madden curse.
The beginning of cover athletes. For the beginning of the game, Madden, the cover featured the person it was named after, which was John Madden. John Madden was on the cover from 1988 to 1999. After the 1999 NFL season, EA Sports decided to have athletes become the cover of Madden. Madden 2000 was set to feature Barry Sanders as their cover athlete. After being announced as the cover athlete, Barry Sanders had his unexpected retirement from the NFL. EA Sports then went back to John Madden for the American version of the game. For the European version of the game, the cover featured Dorsey Levens. Dorsey Levens was coming off a 1,000-yard rushing season. After being the cover of Madden, though, he never broke 500 rushing yards in a season for the rest of his career. 2001 to 2004 cover athletes. Madden 2001 featured Eddie George as the cover athlete. Eddie George was coming off a 1,300 rushing yard season. Eddie George fortunately had his career high season that year after featuring the cover. Unfortunately, though, Eddie George had a bobbled catch in the playoffs that led to a pick six, which lost the Titans the game. Eddie George never came back to the level of production that he had that season in his career. Madden 2002 featured Dante Culpepper as the cover athlete. Dante Culpepper was coming off a 11-win season, having 33 passing touchdowns, 7 rushing touchdowns that season. Culpepper, after featuring the cover of Madden, went 4-7, only having 14 passing touchdowns and having 16 fumbles and 13 interceptions. Dante Culpepper's season was cut 5 games short due to damaging his ACL, PCL, and MCL in his right knee. Dante had one good season after being the cover athlete, but after that season, his career was riddled with injuries. Madden 2003 featured Marshall Faulk, who had 1,300 rushing yards that season before. After featuring the cover of Madden, Marshall Faulk started his downfall of his NFL career. He only had 953 rushing yards that season, and in Week 3, he suffered a neck sprain, which led him to missing 2 games and having limited playing time in 4 other games. After being the cover athlete, Marshall Faulk never broke 1,000 rushing yards in his career ever again. Madden 2004 featured Michael Vick as its cover. Michael Vick was coming off a 9-6-1 season in which he went to the playoffs. Unluckily for Michael Vick, a week after Madden 2004 was released, he suffered a fractured fibula in a preseason game, which kept him out 11 games. 2005 to 2009 cover athletes. Madden 2005 featured Ray Lewis as its cover. Ray Lewis that season failed to record an interception for the first time in his career. Ray Lewis the next season suffered a hamstring injury where he missed 11 games. Madden 2006 featured Donovan McNabb. Donovan McNabb was on track to have a great season, but after some issues with teammates, he missed half of the season. Madden 2007 featured Shaun Alexander. Shaun coming off a MVP season with 1,880 yards rushing and 27 touchdowns. Shaun Alexander broke his foot Week 3 of the regular season and missed 7 weeks that season and finished the year with 896 rushing yards. Shaun Alexander only played 2 seasons after that and never broke 1,000 rushing yards ever. Madden 08 featured Vince Young on the cover. Vince Young was coming off of a Rookie of the Year season. In 2007, Vince was 9-6, but threw 17 interceptions and only 9 touchdowns. The next year, Vince suffered a knee injury which kept him out the whole season. Vince was only a starter 1 more year of his NFL career. Madden 09 featured Brett Favre on the cover. It was in honor of him retiring, But after the game was released, Brett Favre unretired and signed with the Jets. Brett Favre did not have a great year in 2008, with having 22 interceptions and 2010 to 2015 cover athletes. Madden 10 featured Larry Fitzgerald and Troy Polamalu on the cover. Larry Fitzgerald was not affected by the Madden curse. Troy Polamalu, on the other hand, was affected by the curse. Troy injured his MCL and missed 11 games that season. Madden 11 featured Drew Brees on the cover. Drew Brees, coming off of a Super Bowl winning season, threw a career-high 22 interceptions that next season. Drew Brees went 11-5 that season, but lost in the playoffs to 7-9 Seahawks. Madden 12 featured Peyton Hillis, who had his first and only 1,000 rushing yard season of his career. Peyton Hillis only had 500 rushing yards the next season with 9 games played. He ended up getting injured and cut that season. Madden 13 featured Calvin Johnson. Calvin was one of the few people who were not affected by the Madden curse. Calvin nearly had 1,500 receiving yards that season. Madden 25 featured Adrian Peterson on the cover. Adrian ended up getting injured and suspended for the year. Adrian Peterson was riddled by injuries the next 2 years. Madden 15 featured Richard Sherman on the cover. Richard Sherman was another player that did not get affected by the curse. Richard Sherman had 2 interceptions that season and 14 passes. 2016 to 2020 cover athletes. Madden 16 featured Odell Beckham Jr. on the cover. Odell was not affected by the curse. Odell ended up having 1,300 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns. Madden 17 featured Rob Gronkowski on the cover. Rob was affected by the Madden curse. Rob was on track for a record season, but had an injury in a game which forced him to have back surgery and canceled his season. The Patriots ended up going on to win the Super Bowl that year, but Rob was not able to play due to that back surgery. Madden 18 featured Tom Brady. Tom Brady ended up having a MVP season after being the cover of Madden. The only bad thing that happened to him was losing the Super Bowl against the Eagles that season. Madden 19 featured Antonio Brown on the cover. Antonio Brown ended up getting traded that offseason to the Raiders. Antonio Brown never played with the Raiders and got cut and signed with the Patriots for a game before he was out for a season. Madden 20 featured Patrick Mahomes on the cover. Mahomes was not affected by the curse as much as others. Mahomes did get injured, but only missed 3 games. Mahomes still went on to win Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP that season. Madden 21 features Lamar Jackson on the cover. Right now, it looks like Lamar is being affected by the curse, but just by his stats so far in the season. The Ravens are 6-3 right now and are barely in the playoffs as of right now. With all that information, you gotta think to yourself, if you ever had the chance to be on the Madden cover, would you? Do you think the curse is going to continue for more years to come? And do you think Lamar and Jackson can break it and possibly somehow bring his team back to the playoffs? I guess we'll just have to find out for the many more years to come.